yourself to our viewers, please.
Hi, this is Daya from South Texas in the United States.
Yeah. Do you remember when you first got into computers?
Yeah, so growing up, we actually had an Apple II, which was one of the most popular like 8-bit microcomputers in the States besides the Commodore 64. But we had a Franklin Ace clone of the Apple II. We didn't even have the the retail Apple II. We had the clone that my dad bought us sometime in the mid to late 80s.
Yeah. What was the first machine that truly felt like yours?
I want to say it was in the 90s. I could go with a console, but I would say computer-wise, it would have been like an IBM compatible that had Windows 95 on it that we got from a place called Get Computers, which is probably no longer around at all.
Yeah. Were you a gamer first, a tinkerer, or a musician?
I was... That's a good question. I kind of put the gamer and the musician on the same level because I have memories of being at like a Yamaha cheap synthesizer, right, at like 3 years old. And then we also had a piano in the house. But at the same time, I remember having like a NES controller and then also having like an Atari 2600 right alongside that at the same time, where it's just like the memories kind of blur together.
Yeah. Were there any specific console or home computer that shaped your taste in music?
You know, I would say, surprisingly, I got into Amiga music first because of the... because when I started getting online in the late 90s, there was a lot of mod music and there was a lot of cracktros and intros, but also I remember going to a friend's house and getting to play on his Amiga at that time, and he had all sorts of diskettes, and I was just blown away by the music coming out of the speakers. And that kind of made me realize, like, oh, this is really interesting to me. Along with like the music I would hear from, video games, because I was also a console gamer, and I'm like the youngest of 5 kids, right? So I always got the stuff from my older siblings that kind of got passed down to me, and so like, I kind of got to. It's kind of like where I was born in the 80s, but near the end, but I also got all of my older siblings stuff from the 80s and late 70s. So it was like I still got to kind of experience all that stuff.
Yeah, you got the last of it.
After they were going to throw it away, I kind of picked it up and wanted to mess around with it.
Before trackers and chiptunes, what kind of music were you listening to at first?
Oh, wow. So the first thing I remember listening to were a lot of soundtracks. So there were soundtracks to movies. So I remember having the Transformers soundtrack, the cartoon. I think that was the first album I ever owned. The Lion King soundtrack. The Phantom of the Opera, which I think most people are familiar with. And so I was very keyed into that. But also my father, he hosted karaoke, right? So like he was a karaoke jockey, and he's also like a teacher, but that was his main thing. He liked going to places and hosting that. And so I got exposed even before Chiptune and Demoscene music. Like I got exposed to all sorts of music through that. Just going out with him sometimes and helping him set up and tear down for events. So I got to hear all sorts of popular music and interesting stuff.
Yeah. Did you learn any traditional instrument before starting with trackers?
I did. So I learned to play piano pretty much self-taught until I was about, I think 14 is when I had my first piano lesson, but I could already pick up music coming from a song and translate it, translate what I heard into the instrument. And I think the very first song I ever did that with was When the Lion Sleeps Tonight. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. In the Jungle, sure. The Mighty Jungle. That sure. one. For some reason, that's the one I remember. So that, so I was already interested in music that way. I think my mom already played guitar, so she had an acoustic guitar at home that I picked up and learned. And then we had an upright piano, and then like she was really involved in church stuff. And I know like a lot of people, like their first exposure to music is like, you go to church, there's an organ or there's a piano. And that was kind of my experience. Was I was always way more interested if I went to church in going to a room somewhere and finding a piano and tinkering around than I don't remember much of the sermons or anything, but I loved going to a room somewhere. And then my mom would come find me and she's like, okay, it's time to go. And I've just been playing whatever's popping up in my head.
Cool. Was there a moment when you realized you wanted to create music, just don't listen, or create music rather than just listen to it?
I think... Oh, wow. That's a good question. I want to say it's as soon as we got a home tape recorder and we had, we had like a tape cassette, and my brother, I have like, 4 older siblings, and the brother closest in age to me is about 3.5 years older. Sometimes like he would get a hold of the tape recorder because I think my mom used it for her work. She was a psychologist. Yeah. And so we would get a hold of that, and then we hit the record button, and then he figured out that he could, like, you're just a little kid, you record just like little skits you do. Yeah. But I also started playing things on the piano and trying to see what it would sound like in the tape recorder. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of made me go, oh, okay, there's something to this. And so I think that was the start. I think maybe I was 6 years old, 7 years old, and kind of discovering that.
Yeah. Which artists or composers influenced you the most in the beginning?
I think the easiest ones, which I think people can relate to, is the Beatles. Yeah. Where there's just a wealth of music there. There's Michael Jackson was really big when I was a kid. Prince. I'm trying to think. There was this weird time. I grew up in South Texas, and for a few years when I was maybe 8 to 10 years old, maybe even a little bit earlier, all of my siblings were randomly into country music, right? Cowboys and all that stuff, which is not everything what Texas is, but they were into like that sort of thing for like, felt like a year or 2 years. And so that was all I listened to. And so 90s country artists from the early 90s, if I hear a song from that era, I get weirdly nostalgic about it. Yeah. But that's more of like an indirect influence where you're just kind of grabbing everything that's coming your way and you're kind of soaking it up. But actual influences, early on it would have been Beatles, because I remember the first song of theirs that I tried to play on the piano was like Yellow Submarine, and trying to replicate that. Yeah.
Talking about creating music, were you trying to recreate game music at first, or were you immediately writing original material?
I think I was doing original material, but not necessarily realizing that everything I was writing was coming out like game music anyway. What would happen is an older sibling would be like, oh, hey, that sounds like they do. That sounds like Mega Man, or it sounds like Mario or something. And it's like, I'm not I don't think I was consciously aware that what I was writing was starting to veer like hyper melodic or things like that. But that's just how my expression came out. And then it was later I realized like, oh, okay, I could just call this video game music. Or there weren't so many, as a child, you don't always have so many predefined genres of what things can be or what category it could fit into.
Yeah. What was the first tracker software you used?
The first tracker software I used would have been OpenMPT, but actually, no, I take that back. Before that, I did use something. I want to say my first was Fast Tracker 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I used Fast Tracker 2 because I still had like a computer that could run DOS, right? And you could load up Fast Tracker 2 in DOS. And so I would go to the DOS environment and I would poke around in there. And I still have like a couple demos from that, like little demo songs that were unfinished. And then right after that, weirdly, this is a weird way of getting introduced to this next one, which is that I was a member of a church before, right? So like this is like the LDS Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Anyways, we had missionaries come to our house, and one of the missionaries was a giant computer geek. He was, really into computers and making video games. And he showed me how to make a simple game while they were visiting. But he also showed me a tracker, which was Jescola Buzz. Do you remember that? Do you remember Jescola Buzz at all?
No, you have to remember I'm an Amiga guy first and foremost.
Yeah. Okay, so Jescola Buzz would have taken some of the methodology of Amiga, right? And like the tracker clones, like Fast Tracker 2 and Sound Tracker. But the difference with Buzz was it was a Windows compatible tracker. So it was like that was the first Windows compatible tracker I think I used, which was you go in there and you had modules that you could move around, right? So you had things like effects chains, but then you also had your typical tracker pattern that you would have, right? And you could create patterns. And that was a tracker. And so that was the first or second time I remember seeing like the music going down vertically. But the music that came out of that software, much like the Amiga, just had like a really cool sound. It was sample based, but I think Jescola Buzz, what differentiated it was that it was also generative. And so it was generating sounds. And you could also, that was like my first exposure to like, oh, I can connect a delay module or a ring modulator or a chorus. And suddenly I was getting these sounds that I couldn't get out of using something with just like rinky dinky general MIDI samples, right? Like it seems so far advanced from the typical music softwares that you would download for free as a kid. Like I remember having, had you ever heard of something called Anvil Studio?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I can't remember right now.
So it's kind of like, if you think about a lot of people who use like the Atari ST, for example, right? A lot of them got started on like Cakewalk, right?
Yeah.
So it was that sort of thing, but there was a free version and it had a piano roll and it had a score that you could plug in notes on a staff paper, right?
Yeah.
So that was right around that time too, but it was not a tracker, but it was something that made me go, there has to be other softwares out there that are that work better for my brain. So So long story short, I would say Fast Tracker 2 and Jescola Buzz.
Yeah. Did the limitations of tracker frustrate you, or did it actually make you more creative?
I think if I'm thinking about this, it definitely made me more creative. because what I've realized over the years is I if you give me something like a modern digital audio workstation that has an infinite amount of tracks and an infinite amount of plugins to play with, my ADHD, I keep tinkering with things, but then I never get to a finished product. Sometimes I can, but I need those limitations because that is what's sort of making me think, how can I push this limited software as far as it can go? And how can I make it do something that maybe it wasn't intended to do or never did in a commercial video game?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Which platform feels the most natural for you to compose for?
I think it's moved around over time. I've kind of been one of those multidisciplinarians where it's like, I think because I grew up in an era of just being able to download all these different softwares and try things out. I think originally it was like OpenMPT, and then I would sort of move around, and I got into console tracking for quite a while, and I became very comfortable in things like Famitracker, which was used to make NES music, and also based on that, like Fast Tracker and things before like that sort of interface and pedigree. And then I also got really comfortable with something called Deflamask, which was another console tracker. But I think the big difference there was it allowed you to make Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive music, and it lets you make music for multiple consoles, whereas like the trackers before then, it was like you had multiple formats of things you could do, but it was all computer based, right? It was all computer music with nothing wrong with that, but it was all like sample based and sample synthesis. And the difference with Deflamask when I first tried it in like, I don't know, 2009, 2010, was that most of the sounds that you were getting from that program were generated, right? They were generated, but then also you could play it back on your console. And there were things that it supported. It supported Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, NES, and a few other FM things that it supported early on, and Sega Master System. So it kind of had like multiple things that you could do. And so I had friends in the chiptune scene, and so we started collaborating together and just trying to see, like, push each other to get better at that software. And that kind of became my main one. And then what would happen is I would get to something like so it also had support for Commodore 64, but when I got into the Commodore 64 scene and I was talking to people there, they would say, okay, well, this program isn't so great if you're trying to do Demoscene or trying to get it in a game, because of the way it was coded. So they're saying if you really want to get into making music for a game or music for a demo, then you need to try these other softwares. But I found that the most intuitive. The mouse and keyboard interface is typically the most intuitive for me. But I've used, like, I don't know, probably 20 to 25 different pieces of tracker software over the years.
Which platform or computer, console, whatever, is the most difficult you worked on?
I would probably say Commodore 64. And I say that because I have worked on demos and things for many different platforms, like the Tandy Coco and the TI-94A. I think the hard part about the Commodore 64 is it's got a relatively powerful synthesizer inside of it for the time, but it's almost like you, first of all, you have to often understand hex, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But you also have to learn how to define pointers, and you have to learn like the organization. If you're like trying to use a tracker like a cheese cutter, or I got used to using goat tracker too, is that you have areas of the screen that you have to really understand. It's like, I would say the difference with Commodore 64 is you have to understand all of the different things it can do before you even put your first note in.
Yeah.
Like you could do that. You could load up a demo song and maybe you can get a note in there, but there's a level of difficulty because just to get your first note going, you have to know how to start, and you have to define what wave you're using. You have to have a start and end point. You have to see if your filter's turned off or on. Because it has filtering, because it has things like ring modulation, and it has, pulse width modulation and triangle, and like it has all these cool sounds, but to tap into that, you have to do your research.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with like Amiga, I think the appeal of Amiga is that you're using samples, and your samples could sound like total crap, but you could literally go right now, grab one of the classic Amiga songs, right? I could find it on Mod Archive. I could go look up like Radix or someone like that, right?
Yeah.
I can go and study one of their tracks, and that I think more easily is understandable to the average person first getting to a tracker. It's like you see the note data, it comes through, you see how it lines up with a sample, and then maybe you start learning how effects work. But with the Commodore 64, there's like an extra layer of difficulty, I feel like.
Yeah. You've done a lot of music, albums and demos. How different is it producing your own album instead of a demo? The writing process.
Oh, yeah, the writing process is different because your audience is different, right? So like when you're writing music for a demo, typically you're making music that's in service of the visuals. It's almost like you're making music for a music video.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're working with an artist and a coder typically, and you're trying to adhere to their vision, or if you're part of that process, it's the shared vision of how you want the synchronization, like the way the visuals match up with the music. But when I'm making an album of music, it's that part's kind of like video games. When you're writing the music, it's like, how's this music going to fit in with the game?
Yeah.
I say Demoscene's a little closer to writing music for an album because when it's Demoscene, someone's hitting a button and you're watching something. Yeah. And a video game, you're having to interact. That changes things a little bit. Yeah. But then when you're just writing music for an album, the way I think of it is, it's like, okay, this is foreground music. This is like all attention is on the music because it's just an audio element, right? Unless I'm trying to make a music video, what I'm making for this album is all me. I'm not doing this for someone else's project. So it can be freeing, but it can also be kind of scary because I'm only answering to myself. Yeah. Like when you have to be your own boss, right?
Yeah. Demoscene, how did you first hear about it?
Demoscene, I feel like I got in a weird way, which was in the late 90s. We were connected to the internet, and suddenly I think we discovered emulators and discovered ROMs and wares and ware sites. And often when you would get like these, if I wanted to play a full game and not pay for it because I was a little kid and or a young teenager and didn't have pocket money, I would go to one of these ware sites, I would download a piece of software, and what would happen is there would be like a cool intro or something like for the Cracktro, right?
Yeah.
And you'd hear like this really, really cool music come out. And I was fascinated by that. Like it was usually like 4-channel Amiga music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to learn more about that. And so I started looking online and finding sites like Mod Archive. And then getting more into watching demos where I could find them. And since I was into emulators, I could emulate Amiga, I could emulate Commodore 64, and I could load up these demos, because the truth is, in North America, the demo scene is fairly limited. It's all driven by whatever you can find online. There's a few demo parties that happen, like Demo Splash, but most of it is driven by what you find yourself online or what scene you're connected to. Like if you're connected to a chiptune scene, you know, I met demo sceners that way. Or if you go to a computer convention or something like a big convention like MagFest, which is for music and games, I actually met developers and people who'd worked in Demoscene and found out that like, oh yeah, like there's this whole culture, this whole space out there. So that's, I would say like, yeah, for me, early 90s, early 2000s, just being in pure discovery mode and finding things like Second Reality, right? And being fascinated by just the ingenuity behind that. I did want to add one more thing though, which was weirdly, my exposure to Demoscene can be traced before that because I had the Sega Mega Drive, right? And there was a company who made games on there called Zyrinx. And they made one of my favorite games when I was a kid called Subterranea. And they made something called Red Zone. And it turned out that they were Amiga Demoscene coders, which I found out later. But a lot of their Demoscene graphic techniques and Jesper Kide, who was the musician behind the music, you could tell like that is very Demoscene type music, very techno, drum and bass, dark wave, like that sort of thing. But they were really pushing the Sega Genesis in ways it normally wasn't pushed, or the Mega Drive, right? And so I think, like myself, I think kids in North America, because I know Demoscene is so much bigger in Europe, I think they got exposed to it from my era, but might not have realized the Demoscene origins. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Were you nervous putting your first music in front of veteran sceners?
I feel like, yeah, I think at first, I think I was a little nervous, but I think what helped was I think I was in a big Facebook group and someone reached out to me. I think I just posted something for feedback. I was like, hey, I made this Commodore 64 track and it was a funky song that I put out. And yeah, I was nervous as to what the feedback would be like, but people really liked it. And then one of the veteran sceners just messaged me. They sent me a friend request on Facebook and reached out. I think this might have been Enrico, who runs the Commodore 64 site, right?
Oh, yeah.
What my problem is I can't remember everyone's scene name. So you can either call me Dia or call me Aaron, but I struggle because sometimes I go back and forth. But Enrico runs the biggest Commodore 64 website, and he reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to release this song as part of Hokuto Force, right? And I said, sure. Like it was almost like I stumbled into it. I was not putting it out there on the big demo group with the aim of getting picked up by a Demoscene group, right? It was more like I wanted to share this with an audience that I thought would appreciate it.
Exactly. Yeah. That comes into the next one. What surprised you most about the Demoscene culture?
I think what surprised me was how global it is.
Yeah.
I think it's just realizing that there can be teams of people making a product, and they could be in, Norway, Switzerland, the UK, North America, like myself. You could be a team of people all over. And this goes back to like the late 80s and early 90s. People, trading files and things over BBS.
Exactly.
That there's been this almost a hidden culture that the world at large is kind of ignored, that's just kind of been there and kind of grown, like a grassroots thing that's kind of come up. And having gone to a demo party now, I've been to, a couple demo parties, I just have like this really good feeling of community, like people working together and trying to surprise each other. I think that's the coolest thing is if you really like computers and you like to see how far old computers or old technology can get pushed, this is the place to do it.
Exactly. How different is the demo scene from other music communities you've been part of?
Oh, I would say the demo scene is different because it feels more focused. It's reliable, right?
Yeah.
Where you know what you're getting into with demo scene is like, okay, if I'm going to submit music for a compo, or I'm going to submit music for a demo, I know what my viewing audience, I know there's going to be people seeing it live at a demo party, and I know the expectation of like, oh, this whole product might be judged. Whereas like other communities, I was once part of a local electronic community in Texas, and what I felt was there wasn't quite the same sense of community that I found online. It was almost like, yeah, we could both be making electronic music, but it's so completely different that how I make my music feels completely different to what you're doing. And yeah, we can learn and we can play live and do stuff, but I think the demo scene is kind of unifying, and like we had this shared passion. And if I think about like the Chiptune communities, great people there, I've made friends, but I think the difference there is also that is also not quite as focused, and sometimes there can be a lot more really young people in Chiptune and more slightly naive folks, right? Getting in. And so you become like an elder statesman, or you become like hey, let me help you navigate this, or I've had people like come ask me to help critique their music, and it's like, oh, okay, you might need to learn some, just like, I think keep at what you're doing, but you might want to listen to more music, and you might need to learn more about how music is made. And then however the nicest way I would put that, like I think it's great that there's people that get interested that are part of the newer generations. I think that's awesome. But I think the older, as people get older and they're the older people in the scene, we just have to keep it open. We have to keep an open mind, right? Like people are going to have different experiences with our favorite computer. Like if our favorite computer was Amiga, or Apple II, or Commodore 64, or ZX Spectrum, it's just like, you have to understand that like there's people now that are maybe 20 years old that are fascinated by this whole scene, and they're coming at it from a completely different space. They don't have the nostalgia that maybe we had growing up playing games on these systems or watching demos.
Exactly. I have spoken to kids as young as 13 that have started now with trackers on the Amiga, for example. So so it's like
now it's easier than ever.
Yeah.
You can load a clone of ProTracker inside your browser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got 3 kids of my own, and they've all shown interest at various points with using tracker software. And I probably spoiled them because now I think if they go to most people, they use a digital audio workstation, and it's a piano roll.
Yeah.
Or if you're lucky to have renoise, it's still a tracker, but it's a fully featured thing. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I found that with digital audio workstations, I just don't love the piano roll, and I don't love the vertical slice of notes here, and the timeline going kind of left to right. I don't know why my brain is wired this way, but I just fell in love with trackers and the pattern-based comfort of using them.
Yeah. Talking about learning, did you learn anything from collaborating with other sceners?
Oh, 1,000%. I would say the person who helped me learn the most was probably Jammer, C64, who has been involved with many different groups, and is just one of those, just a really nice person who's helped out with many different productions with music and with coding, and sort of helped me to tighten things up. There's also, he goes by Maze. So Maze and Noah XS. I've done Amiga productions with them and Commodore 64. And I think just being open, I think the biggest thing is I've had various points in my life where things just got really busy. Yeah. And I didn't have time to initiate or start a project myself. And what I found with Maze, it's like MA2E, that's how it's spelled, is that this is someone who is always out there throwing out new music to different parties and is always on the lookout. And then when you find someone who gets you enthusiastic, that's the biggest thing, and is confident in your skill level, it makes you feel more confident and able to work on something together with them, which I've made things with him. Yeah. But the biggest thing is that builds your confidence, and then you can start doing more solo things. My biggest thing is I've worked with collaborators in the Demoscene and other musicians, and sometimes you're not confident, or maybe you don't feel like you have enough time to finish a whole tune, but you've got the bones of a song, or they've got the bones of a song, and they just need a chorus, or they need an extra little bit of spice you can throw in. Exactly. So I think that's what I love about collaboration, is that when you're a one-man band and you're making the song all yourself, you can get feedback from people, but when you're collaborating, you also have to cede some of that control. Yeah. And you have to work together on a shared vision. And I think those people I mentioned are just great natural collaborators and great at helping work together. And that's musicians and coders, but I also want to shout out the organizers and the people doing the hard project management work of Demoscene, because it's all unpaid work. So
yes, it is.
It's Ola here. Yeah.
Thanks. Talking about that, what's the most fun project you ever worked on in the Demoscene?
In the Demoscene, okay. I would say it has to be, speaking of Resistance and RSC, I would have to say it's making music for Ninja Carnage.
The game, yeah.
Yeah, so that ended up being a game, and it's I love the demos I've worked on, But I think with my history of playing video games at a very young age and getting into Commodore 64, I think it was always a dream of mine to make a full soundtrack for a video game. And what's weird is like I had made like chiptune albums before I'd made all that music, and I'd done like a few songs that ended up in video games. But this was the first time where it was like, oh, I get to like make the whole soundtrack. And it was a fun project to work on, and it was really scary because it was also right around the time that I was getting married. So my project deadlines were kind of crazy, where it was like, I think you were asking me like, hey, when will this be done? And then I'm talking to the lead guy who made Ninja Carnage, and he's like, okay, yeah. Remind me of I haven't talked to him in a while. What was his name you said?
Christoph, or his nickname is Oriens.
Oriens, yeah. So I think you'd approached me with Ninja Carnage as it was being ported to the Commodore 64. Yeah. And I was on the team, and I think I was kind of hungry to do some more Commodore 64 work. And that was the first time where it was like, okay, I have to use a trusted tool in the Commodore 64 scene, which was Goat Tracker 2. It was something where it was like a low footprint. It wouldn't cause issues with the game working or take up too much memory. And so that was what I ended up using. And I didn't make music for any other platforms for like, I think 6 months to a year. So I was just like in that zone of like, I'm just making music for Commodore 64 and that's it. Yeah. So that it was kind of like what I thought in, right? It's just like when you're in that sort of zone. So Jammer was a really good help, Jammer C64, in getting, like, I would show him demos and then he would give me feedback, or I would tell him like, I want to produce this type of sound. And like, well, here's a way you can do filtering to get a better kick drum or get something like that. Cool. And so I was able to take, it's just good to have mentors, right? Or people who've done work in the Commodore 64 area. So him, and then Oriens had, good feedback for me. I liked how, I think because it was being ported from, it was originally on the Amiga, right? Ninja Carnage?
Oh, we had it on several
not
platforms.
Amiga, it was originally on CPC, right?
Yeah. No,
it was originally on the...
Spectrum?
Yeah.
Well, now you're getting
Spectrum or on the...
I'm getting old
Amstrad CPC.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Amstrad CPC. And the issue there was, I think that Oriens was really ambitious and wanted to have a different soundtrack for the platforms that had a different sound synthesis. So that's how you ended up with, total respect to the guys who worked on the music for the Amstrad CPC version. But when translating it to Commodore 64, I understand why he wanted a completely new sound for that, because I think just like starting fresh made sense. And then also I think for the Amiga version, that one also needed a different author to get that kind of sound. So it was an honor getting to work on the Commodore 64 and be trusted to do a full soundtrack. And working with Oriens was cool because the game he was making, Ninja Carnage isn't exactly like a side-scrolling action game. It's a puzzle hunter type game where you're presented with images and you have a cursor that you move around and you're given like text to read, and then you have to hit the right button in the right sequence, almost like a quick time event, like in Dragon's Lair, something like that. And so I think it really helped that he knew exactly what type of game it was, and he already had all the scenes mapped out because he'd already made the game. So now it was me just trying to fit his vision for what that should sound like on the Commodore 64, and getting to realize how much I loved that. Of like, okay, here's the scene. You're this ninja, and now he's in this underground cavern. You know, he's snuck into this temple. He's literally like traveling down to hell.
Yeah.
And now he's in this underground temple place. What does the music sound like? And my favorite Commodore 64 soundtracks were from people like Tim Fallon, where it would be very atmospheric. And so you'd hear different sound effects. And so I got to play around with crafting sound effects using the Commodore 64 sound synthesis. And so I could have the sound of water dropping, or the sound of a door creaking open, or the sound of wind rushing, right?
Yeah.
And then it almost felt like I was building a movie score, but also doing the Foley work at the same time, all with the 3 channels of the Commodore 64. So if we're talking about like limitations, those were extreme limitations. You have 3 channels. If you want to do like full chords, you're going to have to use often broken chords, arpeggios, or you're going to use like really fast arpeggios in a lane of your track, and like you're doing the kick drum, and the it's like the kick drum also has a bass note on it, so it's like you're combining different instruments together to save space.
What do newcomers misunderstand about the Demoscene, do you think?
I think newcomers might, if I think about this, I think people often think about things as a product, and like, you know, how much money am I going to get from this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's a big money element to it, that people are often thinking, okay, I'm going to have an audience, but I'm also going to get a paycheck. And there's not that much music for most people in music anyway. But I think what I love about Demoscene is, and this is what I've told my wife, is like, I'm going to have projects. Like I just wrapped a music project where I got paid money, and it was, you know, well paid. But when you're doing stuff for Demoscene, I think there's a level playing field for everybody, because we're all doing this for the passion and for the love. Nobody's making money off this, but where we're enriching ourselves is we're building art. We're building our skill sets. We're becoming better coders, better musicians, better collaborators. I think people often miss that part of it, which is like, oh, we're building real world skills. Like you've got people like the guys who formed Zyrinx on the Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, or you've got like people who started in the Amiga Demoscene, like what was it? John Burton? Is that who I'm thinking of? So the guy who founded TT Games, Traveler's Tales.
Yeah.
He got his.
There's a lot of them. So
yeah, he started in the Amiga Demoscene, and then Traveler's Tales made several games like Toy Story and Sonic 3D Blast, or Sonic Blast on the Sega Mega Drive. And then all I'm saying is like, Demoscene is community, but you can also take those skills if you want paid work or something, and it transfers over. I have met people that are who do graphics or have done the math for demos, who in their day jobs, you know what, they are working they're working at a company who makes microchips, or they do this sort of thing. I think if you go to demo parties, you'll see that like people come from all sorts of different backgrounds, but we've all got that shared passion for the machines. Yeah.
Exactly. Do you remember your first live set at the demo party?
Yeah, that was Demo Splash. Demo Splash 2017, I want to say. I was invited as the guest musician because their demo parties, they take place at Carnegie Mellon University, which is like a huge, prestigious university over in the northeast part of the United States, right? And it's like a big math college, arithmetic, that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of computer science majors there. and so it's not quite as music focused. So I've been invited to apply and go play there by I can't remember what his scene name is, but it's Brendan Becker. He's one of the founders, creators of MagFest, and he's known in the scene. He's made a lot of different demo things over the years, and or music for demos. And he invited me to apply because he had been like the guest musician for them. And so I did that, and I got to perform, and it was pretty cool. It was unique. What I would say is, I think if I had gone to, I think demo parties in Europe are probably more like parties.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
At Carnegie Mellon, because we're doing this at a university on a school campus, it's very much no drinking allowed, right? So for the people that like to drink, there's no alcohol permitted because of course, there are students that are under 21 in our country who are not technically allowed to drink. And so it gives it a different, more academic feel to it. And I played on a stage to it almost looked like I was looking out at a cafeteria, right? Where people were at these long tables. But it was still fun. People really liked my set, and I got to feed off that energy, and it made me realize oh yeah, I really like performing live, and not just to Demoscene audiences, but I do imagine there's a big difference where if you go to one of the bigger demo parties in Europe, that there's a more laid back party atmosphere, and there's probably a rave or something, or there's a music block, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And Demo Splash, there's a lot more really cool presentations from sceners on how graphics were made for these demos, or showing off because they have I think they had sponsorships from NVIDIA and other big companies because they're a big computer science school, right? So you've got more of the sponsorships from those places, and so you get to see there were still demos and things from classic platforms like Amiga, but there were also things where people were pushing demos on more modern hardware, using bare metal demos to demonstrate stuff on on a Raspberry Pi. So yeah, it's unique. I would definitely want to go perform at a demo party again, but if I could, I'd want to go over to Europe and play over there, because I think it would just be a different experience.
Yeah. How does performing for sceners differ from performing for a general music audience?
I think you have to win over a general audience a little more. Especially if I played a show in Austin, Texas during South by Southwest, and it was during a 3-day nerd convention, so that helped. So people already know they're going to hear bleeps and bloops, and they're going to hear computer sounds, but they're not quite sure what they're going to expect. I think Demoscene, they know exactly what they're there to listen to. And so it means that I can cater my set to that audience, and I can give them exactly what I know it's not I'm going to give 100% of me. And I also play my bass guitar here. I play instruments live while I perform. So it's I do a combination of, I'm playing back my tune, but I'm also giving live accompaniment. And so I think for Demosceners, it's different. I don't know, maybe Demosceners want to hear the original music as intended. But, I think there's some there that will still appreciate you adding the extra layer. I'm a musician first, right? So it's I love performing. I love playing piano and guitar or bass guitar as accompaniment to my music. And so I think the big difference is expectations versus reality. what are Demoscene people going to key into? And they might catch references. If I throw in a reference to something from a classic demo, it's almost like jazz. I could probably throw in something that they might be familiar with from a classic song. Whereas like a audience outside of that, it might be more like, hey, do you like video games? You know, or hey, do you like the sound of this? Let me kind of expand your mind a little bit and show you that it's not just video games, that there's a whole world of sound out there, or unexplored territory. Or if you just like electronic music, or electronic music mixed with rock instrumentation, there's a whole world out there for you.
Yeah. Have you experimented with original hardware on stage?
What kind of original hardware would you say?
Amiga, Game Boy, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I've definitely brought my
Spectrum.
And our classic. Let me see if I can grab it. Yep, I've performed with my Commodore 64 on stage.
Cool.
Most of the time, I end up using my Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive on stage as my musical accompaniment, because I can play back my Mega Drive tracks, but it also has the ability to play back mod files and to play back files from other systems if I needed to. But it still feels better to me. And sometimes people use that distinction, like I'm a hardware musician. But for me, it's like, yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that platform on stage, or one of the ones I showed, versus like a Game Boy. And the problem I have with performing with a Game Boy, and I know I've had friends who do that. The problem I found with that is, like, if someone's playing with their Game Boy on stage, there's always this chance of something getting disconnected or something jostled, and it, you know, your song stops mid-song, and then what are you doing? So like, I feel more comfortable if my hardware is sitting right in front of me, or it's sitting on top of my synthesizer, and you know, it's generating cool sounds, and then I'm getting to accompany it. So it's like I'm kind of, you know, it's the star of the show, and I'm just the accompaniment.
So, favorite and worst experience doing a live set? I bet you have one of each.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll start with favorite. I think they're both at the same place. So my favorite was performing a set at MagFest, which brings together all sorts of different people who make video game music and also make chiptune, and there's some Demoscene people that show up there. It's just like one of the biggest conventions that happens for that sort of thing in North America. It's probably the biggest, like, I don't know, 20 to 30,000 people show up, right? And so I've gotten to perform first I performed like open mic sets one year, but then the next I was able to perform a set on their chiptune stage as part of their list of performers, and that was well attended for me, right? Where it was like I could see over, I don't know, 100 people in the audience, right? And they were really enjoying my music. And so I think that was, and I've probably played shows that had more people, a little bit more people, but like that's the main one where I felt like, oh, there are people that really get this and get what I'm trying to do and take it seriously. And I think it's so much different. Sometimes you have to travel out of your home area to meet people that are like you and appreciate the weird stuff that you like, right? And so I think the biggest thing was, if you look at video or pictures from that night, I just felt really in my element. And weirdly, it wasn't a show where I played an instrument. I was literally just DJing my music at that time, dancing around on stage. But really, I think what it was I think feeling a kinship to the audience. And also, I think at the time, I was helping as part of an organization to raise awareness and a charity for autism. And my kids and I had made these special albums, like a sampler of all of the musicians involved in a compilation. And then my kids helped me make these homemade album covers. And so I got to take those to MagFest, and we sold out of all of them. I think we made like, we might have made like 50 of them, something like that.
Cool.
And so it was just like a couple things. So that was like my best experience. And kind of you get the respect of like people you respect, or people that say like, that was a really awesome set. Or you hear from someone else like, oh, hey, this really much more famous person really liked your set. Like, oh, like famous in our scene, right? Like, yeah, I don't feel like name dropping, but yeah, there was a guy who's like a big name who got to hear my set and thought it was really cool. So I was like, oh, that feels really good. Like that makes you want to keep going. Worst experience was I played at a local bar in San Antonio. I was friends with the guy, with the bartender. He said, yeah, come out and play. You can play for as long as you want. And so I set up and I play, and there's a lady who's having a birthday party in the corner at the same time. And there's also a jukebox, like one of those jukeboxes on the wall where you can pick songs. And I brought my own PA, but suddenly she wanted to hear what she wanted to hear on her music instead of what I was performing on stage. And so my sound was competing and clashing with whatever she was trying to play through the club's PA speakers. And so it was horrible. That like I remember getting on the mic and like telling the bartender, I was like, hey, you brought me in here to perform. Can we cut can we cut this music? I was like, it's like, happy birthday. Like, that's great. But like, that's, it's like if you're asked to perform somewhere, whether or not it's like, I got paid from tips that night. But it was one of those experiences like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I never ended up playing there again. But I mean, like that's happened. And then otherwise, I think one time, and it became a joke, like a meme, but it was like I fell on stage because I was dancing around and I tripped over some wiring that was on the stage. And my second album I released, I ended up calling it Fall Damage because of that.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? It's a video game term, and I didn't get hurt bad or anything. It was just really funny because it became like there was like an animated GIF or GIF or whatever. So like at the time, you could see me just like getting ready for the drop of the song, whatever, and then like I jump up and come crashing down.
Are you more relaxed on stage now than when you started out?
Absolutely. I don't get those pre-show jitters. I think what happens, actually having instruments focuses me more. It makes it so I have to prepare more for my show. Especially because sometimes as a musician, when you're making Demoscene or Chiptune, you're writing stuff that might be more complex than what you normally play, right? And so I have to make sure whatever I'm playing that I've adapted it to be playable on my bass guitar. And I don't have a 5-string bass guitar, so it's like sometimes we're making music where the lowest bass note is way lower than what your bass can do. So sometimes I'm playing melodic lines on my bass guitar, or it means that you're having to focus in and do a different element. You're presenting your music in a different way. And so you kind of get to be the arranger.
Is there a performance you'd love to relive? And why?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's one. So, yeah, I think so. There was a time for about 3 years where I had a two-person band, and so I would do Demoscene and Chiptune songs of mine with a drummer, and my friend Ryan, he's like a really, really good drummer. And honestly, if I could, we're in two different cities now, but I would love to go play at a fest or a demo scene thing with him, and recreate one of our sets because he learned drum parts to all of my songs.
Cool.
And we had just a really good energy together. But if there was like a specific one, yeah, I know which one it would be. It would be any one of them where we had sound issues, where it's like our sound was only coming out like, because it's like when you're doing this type of music and you're also trying to play live, you have to have inner ear monitors or have, like headphones like this.
Yeah.
And there was one time where we had music on stage, but no one in the audience could hear my tracks from the songs themselves. So we're just bopping along, and all they're hearing is drums kick in, doing great, and then me just playing some riffs along. But they're not hearing the music; they're just hearing me go dun 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 dun. And you're like, okay, when's the music actually going to start?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I remember, I think Ryan's girlfriend at the time, she had hired a videographer, and so like he's filming this, and it just all ended up being unusable footage because our sound was just so messed up. It's like, we look great, we were really into it, but you're just hearing
that's
bad sound from the audience. That's
a bummer. Okay, are you still active in the demo scene today?
I would say I'm like semi-retired right now, but I still will come back every once in a while when I have like gaps in my free time. So I have come back. I did come back to make a track. I think it got second place, and this was like in the old school compo category with MA2E Maze and with no excess. And we made a track that I want to say this was at Grep, but we got second place on it. And this was like maybe a year ago. And so I think it's just been tricky because my wife and I have had to move and changing circumstances. But what I like about Demoscene is I think if you're ready, you can always come back.
Definitely.
I think it's always one of those things where,
it's like in Resistance, there's always an open door policy. If you have to leave because you don't have time, you can always come back.
Yeah. And I've done, I don't know how many sceners are like, have done, maybe you can tell me like how many people end up doing scene work for multiple groups, right?
Yeah, there's quite a few, and then there's a few that joins way too many groups.
Too many, yeah. And I realized that early on that it was like, oh, I'm in too many groups, and then I whittled it down, and then it was like, I think it was Resistance and then Desire, and then I felt okay about that because you guys would do collaborations sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. We did that.
So that felt at least like, oh, okay, well, at least they work together. Like I don't feel like I'm doing the same. It's like when you feel like you're doing the same type of production or scene thing for both. But yeah, to answer your question, I think that, I'll always come back. Even if I don't have as much time. I know a lot of times some sceners will retire or they'll retire from their day job and then they'll suddenly have more time and then they'll become really active again in the scene. So I can anticipate, I'm not necessarily... excuse me, I'm not necessarily going to retire from my day job anytime soon. Yeah. But I think as time goes on, I should have more breaks in my time to work on things.
Yeah, and you also have people that have kids, and when the kids grow up, you certainly have, I have time again. So they come back.
I've got 3 teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got 3 teens, and it is a busy time.
Oh,
But I
definitely.
also have I have downtime just like anyone else. So
Yeah.
it's just like if you can dedicate the time and you're passionate, I say go for it.
Yeah. Outside of your live shows, what are you creating music for these days? You talked to me a bit about it before, but we never really dove into it. Can you do that now?
Yeah. So there was a game where I did their trailer music about 7 years ago called Basketball Classics. And that game just got released on all of the it's been on Steam, right?
Yeah.
But it got published by Acclaim, used to be a big publisher in the 90s. And that game's been released on all of the modern platforms like your Nintendo Switch and
Yeah.
PS4, 5, Xbox. But now they're working on Super Basketball Classics featuring the Harlem Globetrotters. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of the Harlem
Yeah.
Globetrotters?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, because I think they're kind of like a worldwide brand. Like people know about them even if they don't know about basketball teams. And like
Yeah.
for me, I loved basketball in the 90s. I had fun playing it. And so, like, I also have been doing podcasting for many years in the retro gaming space. And I connected up with these guys from Namo Gamo, and they reached out to me probably about 6 months ago now, maybe 7, to work on music for Super Basketball Classics. And I just wrapped up the soundtrack, and I think it's going to blow people away. And so right now there's like a trailer. If you go out to YouTube, you can find Super Basketball Classics. That doesn't have my music yet. But the music I'm making, they wanted it to be music from the Mega Drive, from the Sega Genesis. And so all the music is completely authentic Mega Drive, Sega Genesis music, 16-bit chiptune. And so that's going to be a mix of FM synthesis, but with also some sample synthesis, and then also some 8-bit PSG. That's what I love about that platform is it's kind of a mix of like 3 different types of chiptune all in one.
Cool.
And it's dynamic enough where you can really get some cool sounds out of it. So that is done. And now we're kind of in the stage of I'm working with the 2 guys from the 2 main guys, and they're implementing the music in the game and working on other stuff. And I think they're planning for a release late, I would say Q4 of 2026. But it's got rotoscoping, right? Like that. If you think of like Another World on the Amiga,
Yeah.
that's what it's going to have, that kind of feel, but very smooth 16-bit style. But like they actually filmed basketball players doing different moves, and so that will show up in the game. And these guys are just like super talented at what they do. I really love the animations in the game. It has that pure 16-bit feel to the gameplay. The first game actually has a full Commodore 64 soundtrack, so that should tell you what you're getting into. And then this one's going to be more 16-bit, but very approachable, where even if you're not a big basketball fan, it's the type of game where you could have fun playing it, kind of like when people played like an NBA Jam or something like that.
Cool. I might have to check it out myself.
Yeah, it'll be on Steam and everything else. I think it'll be launching all at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. You have worked with old hardware, modern tools, game music, albums, and the demo scene. When people look back at your work years from now, what do you hope they remember most about you?
Oh, I hope that they I hope they just remember that there was a human behind all of this.
Yeah.
And that I put my heart and soul into it. And I have been told this by people before, like, you worked way harder on this than you probably had to.
Yeah.
And because my wife knows it's like I can be a perfectionist sometimes, and I just hope that people enjoy the music, and even if I'm long gone, that someone can stumble upon my stuff and get some joy out of it.
Cool. Okay. Do you think internet has changed creativity for the better or worse?
I would say historically, yes. Currently, we're kind of in a really weird time where I think AI has sort of made the barrier to entry for people wanting to put songs out there.
Mm-hmm.
It made it way easier, and AI's been like Suno's been trained on lots of people may not know this, but it's been trained on a lot of Demoscene music because it was freely available.
Yeah.
Without not, I think a lot of it was like free to distribute, or like there's some sort of licensing. Anyway, that stuff got all out there. My take is if you're human and you have the capability, just keep trying to make music and learn how to make it. Don't take shortcuts if you don't have to. I think people in the demo scene appreciate like the hard work and effort. And even if you're a beginner, there's people out there that will show you the ropes and get you up to the level you want to be at without taking shortcuts. So it's like internet, has it helped? Yeah, it helped me get into the scene and connect with other people. Like there wouldn't be a demo scene without the internet or BPS. It would hardly exist. You'd all have to go into like one demo party. You all meet up and then you say bye and then you see each other again next year. But with the internet, you can all connect, and we're all like we're all a big family, right?
Yeah.
And there's rivalries, but it's not really serious. It's more just like friendly competition.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about AI, but what are your thoughts about AI? Is it a useful tool or is it just slop?
I think that you can't put everything in the slop category. I have seen recent efforts from sceners where they have built trackers with the assistance of Claude, but they were already doing like 90% of the work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the problem happens when you get into the people that are just enthusiasts and they're only doing 5% of the work and AI is doing 95% of the work. And then there's no one really there to do the QA, like the quality assurance that this thing will actually work the way you want it to. And then it's like you've made this whole thing, and then you're like, oh, look at this thing I made. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you need to give more of the credit to this machine, like this agent from AI that helped you. But there's also like, even outside of that, we don't have to get super into it, but it's like we already mine rare earth materials to build computers, and we already use all sorts of plastics. But then it's like the layer of AI on top of that. It's like if we're already kind of like killing our planet in different ways, it feels like AI is supercharging that because it can put a drain on water supply. So there's pros and cons, right?
Yep.
I do see the benefits of AI when you're at the wireframing stage, when you're trying to build the structure and you need ideas. But what I don't love so much about AI is the stealing of other people's intellectual property and the stealing of other people's work. Like I do like the idea that like knowledge should be free and that people should have access to tools. But I really hope that we find a way to keep the humans making the things they love. And maybe AI becomes a separate category. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is yet, but it's like I just saw there was a tracker made, or a couple trackers that were made. And I was like, wow, how did they put those out within like the span, like 2 trackers in the span of 3 months, right? for like these notoriously hard to work on platforms. Like, that's great. And then, it was, AI assisted.
Yeah.
Which, okay, sometimes AI can help us find solutions to problems where we couldn't solve them. But I think, like you said, you mentioned at the beginning, is it all slop? I don't think it's all slop, but there's so much slop that it takes away attention from maybe things that we could get people in front of that are more interesting.
Yeah. I guess time will show what happens to it.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to go away.
No,
I think it's
Definitely
another
not.
innovation, right?
Yeah.
It's like another innovation. But I think it is one of those things where we really have to be really good stewards over what it's used for, like the use cases.
Yeah.
And like my wife is a professor, and there's a big struggle in schools with AI because it can often lead to students not using their own critical thinking, right? Because they're relying on AI, the immediacy, right? The dopamine, the immediacy to like go, oh, like I don't need to I don't need to do this research paper and grab a source. I can just have AI give me 5 sources instantaneously, right? It's like the fast food. It's like, oh, I've got the food right here. I don't need to learn how to cook.
It's almost like a calculator. It just does it for you.
Yeah, it does it for you. And it's like, I think that we lose out on some of the human experience. And it's not to say that like everybody is the same, but I think for a majority of people, you're losing out on learning valuable skills.
Definitely. I'm not that scared for our generations, but but the young ones, I fear those might abuse it. And but time will tell.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's good to bring it up because I know even in the demo scene that it can kind of become a witch hunt sometimes, right? Or it's like we would call it, where it's like, oh, what's that? Was that demo scene production actually produced authentically? Because we're all about authenticity in the demo scene, right? It's like, or did you have a reference image that you used an AI tool to draw it out for you, and then you traced over it? Like, there's that problem everywhere, not just in the other spaces, even in demo scene. I know it's a problem.
There's definitely those using it and not letting people know, but as long as you use it as a tool and you include information about how it was used and what you used it for, and you did actually some of the work yourself, then I think it can be okay. But as I've said before, if you're releasing a 4K demo and the AI did everything, then I don't see the point. But if you're creating a music disc, for example, like we are now, and Owens is doing most of the work, but it's a big music disc, and he will be using AI for some of the more tedious work. And he will document everything that's done by him and was done by the AI.
Transparency, yeah. I think I'm more on board for transparency overall.
But all the music will be human made, and that's what's important in a music disc. It's not the skeleton, it's the music. So that's my point of view on that, at least.
Yeah, I'm with you. If we're offloading certain tasks that are things that are busy work, right?
Yeah.
I see the appeal of doing that, where it's like, hey, this project would have taken 6 months or a year, where now we're able to cut the time down to focus on more human things. Like I can see that, even if it's not like 100% my thing. I see why people would want to do that.
And the thing with this project is that it's probably Orin's last Amiga production, and he has been struggling to find the time to finish this one. And so we're probably a year behind schedule already. So if he's ever going to finish it, he will have to use AI for a few tasks. And it's as easy as that.
Yeah, and I think if there's transparency, I think that's better than just not releasing it. Because I have, I've done some music productions and I'm working with a really good graphics person, and then my songs are just kind of sitting there waiting because they haven't found the time, and real life happens, right? These aren't our day jobs. So I understand.
But enough about AI. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, don't say yes to everything.
Smart.
I don't say yes to everything, because it's nice to be liked and respected enough to get asked to do things, or to be excited for a project, but you have a limited amount of hours and a limited amount of days of your life. And if you say yes to everything, then you're really saying no to yourself and your time.
Smart one.
So you have to protect your time, really, and you have to figure out what you're most passionate about and focus on that and organize your time.
Good reply. Okay, we're nearing the end here. Any shout-outs or greetings you'd like to send?
I would say just greets and shout-outs to everybody in the demo scene I've met along the way, in Resistance, in Desire, in Hokuto Force, and all of the other demo sceners I've become friends with that aren't in those groups. I've worked on small projects, or just been like, hey, we need a last minute musician for, I think it was Nova Party. And this was in the UK. And so it was me getting to help out with a project that wasn't part of the groups I was in normally. And so I think I would just say shout out to anybody who's out there putting in the hard work and producing mind-bending magical things, because I think it's magic. I think Demoscene is magic.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for taking the time to do it, and good luck with your future projects.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, good.